It was a Tuesday evening in London, and the rain fell hard on the streets. Emma Mitchell, a 35-year-old barrister and mother of two, drove home from her law office. She had spent the day helping her younger colleagues prepare for their first court cases. After work, she always stopped by the community centre where she taught free English classes to immigrants. Emma loved her work. She had fought hard to become a successful lawyer. As a black woman in London's legal world, she knew her achievements meant something special. She wanted to show her children, Michael and Sophie, that hard work could take them anywhere. The traffic was heavy near Brixton Road. Emma slowed down at a junction when blue lights flashed in her mirror. She pulled over to the side of the road. Two police officers stepped out of their car. Officer David Thompson was tall and thick-set. Officer James Wilson was younger, but had the same stern expression. Emma rolled down her window. "Good evening, officers. How can I help you?" Officer Thompson looked at her expensive coat and leather briefcase. "Step out of the vehicle, please." "McQuarrie, I ask why you've stopped me?" Emma asked politely. "Just routine, nothing for a fancy lady like you to worry about," Wilson sneered. Emma felt her heart beat faster. She knew she hadn't broken any traffic laws. She had been driving carefully in the rain, but she stepped out of her car anyway. The rain immediately soaked through her coat. "Is this your car?" Thompson asked, though he could clearly see the registration matched Emma's address. "Yes, it is. I have all my documents here." Emma reached into her handbag. "Aha, another posh lawyer thinking she's special," Thompson laughed to Wilson. "Probably thinks her law degree makes her better than everyone else." Emma tried to stay calm. "I just want to cooperate with you, officers. Here are my license and insurance papers." Wilson snatched the documents from her hand. "Where'd you steal this car from?" "Excuse me?" Emma couldn't believe what she was hearing. "I bought this car 2 years ago. The papers prove it." "Papers can be faked," Thompson said. He started looking through Emma's car windows. "Wilson, let's check the boot, see what else she's hiding." "You have no reason to search my car," Emma protested. "I was obeying all traffic laws." "Resisting, are we?" Wilson smirked. "That's what they all say. Open the boot yourself or we'll have to call backup." Emma knew she had to be careful. Any wrong move could make things worse. She opened the boot with shaking hands. Inside were her children's football boots, some shopping bags and work files. Thompson roughly pulled out the bags. "Look at these designer labels. Where'd the money come from for all this fancy stuff?" "I work hard for my money," Emma said quietly. She couldn't stop her voice from shaking. "Right, and I'm the King of England," Wilson mocked. "You people always have excuses." Emma felt tears forming in her eyes, not from sadness but from anger and humiliation. She stood in the pouring rain while these officers treated her like a criminal. Cars drove past, some slowing down to watch the scene. "Sir," Emma tried once more, "I've shown you my documents. I've allowed you to search my car. Is there anything else you need?" Thompson was writing something in his notebook. "Oh yes, there's plenty. Failure to indicate at line 47. Speeding on Acre Lane, suspicious behavior when stopped." "What? I didn't do any of those things." Emma's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. "Are you arguing with an officer?" Wilson stepped closer. "That's another charge right there." Emma's legal training kicked in. She needed to remember everything they said and did. She noticed Wilson's body camera wasn't turned on. Thompson's was, but he kept angling it away when he spoke. "We're doing you a favor by not arresting you," Thompson said. He handed her 3 traffic tickets. "That'll be £600 in fines." "This is outrageous. I'll fight these in court," Emma said, taking the tickets with trembling fingers. "Good luck with that," Wilson sneered. "No one's going to believe you over us." "Just another angry person trying to get attention," Thompson added. "Save yourself the trouble. Pay the fines and move on, unless you want to explain to your kids why Mummy got arrested." The officers returned to their car and drove away, leaving Emma standing in the rain. Water mixed with tears ran down her face, but behind the tears something else was building. A determination she hadn't felt in years. These officers thought they were untouchable. They thought her word meant nothing. They were wrong. Emma got back in her car. Her hands still shook as she started the engine, but her mind was already working. She was a lawyer. She knew how to build a case, she knew how to find evidence, and she knew exactly what to do next. The rain continued to fall, but Emma's resolve only grew stronger. The and Emma sat at the police station the next morning. The officer at the front desk shuffled papers without looking up. "Yes, what's the problem?" "I need to file a complaint about Officers Thompson and Wilson. They stopped me last night and treated me unfairly." The desk officer finally glanced up. "Name?" "Emma Mitchell." He typed slowly on his keyboard. I don't see any record of a stop last night. Are you sure it happened?" Emma felt her jaw tighten. "Yes, I'm sure. They gave me 3 tickets. Here they are." The officer barely looked at the tickets. "I'll pass this to the complaints department. They'll contact you in 6 to 8 weeks. "That long? Can't someone review the body camera footage today?" "Sorry, that's policy. Standard procedure." He handed her a small card with a complaint number. "Next, please." Emma walked home feeling frustrated. As she turned onto her street, she saw Mrs. Grace Williams putting out her bins. Grace had lived next door for 20 years. She had always been like a grandmother to Emma's children. "Morning, Emma. You look upset, dear." "Morning, Grace. I had some trouble with police officers last night." Grace's face darkened. "Not Thompson and Wilson." Emma stopped walking. "You know them." "Oh, yes," Grace said bitterly. "They stopped my nephew Marcus last month. Searched his car, said he looked suspicious. He's a doctor, works at St. Thomas Hospital. They treated him like a criminal." "Did he file a complaint?" "He was too scared. Said it wouldn't matter anyway." Emma's mind raced. "Grace, I'm going to fight this. Would Marcus talk to me? I'll ask him to call you." Later that afternoon, Emma stopped by the corner shop. Tom Harris had run the shop for 15 years. He always gave her children free sweets and knew everyone in the neighborhood. "Tom, did you hear about my trouble last night?" Tom shook his head. "Tell me what happened." After Emma explained, Tom's face turned red with anger. "Those same officers, they've been bothering the young lads who hang around outside. Last week they stopped 3 teenagers, made them empty their pockets, told them to go home where they belong. One boy's family has lived here for 3 generations. Tom, I need evidence. Do you have security cameras?" "Only inside the shop, but the petrol station across the road has cameras. Dave, who works there, is a good friend." Emma drove to the petrol station immediately. Dave, the manager, welcomed her warmly. "Emma, I saw those officers give you trouble last night. Watched it all from inside. Your cameras caught it?" "Everything. The way they searched your car, how they shouted, it's all on film. Can I get a copy?" "Absolutely. Give me an hour to save it properly." Word spread quickly in the community. By evening, Emma's phone buzzed constantly. Lisa from the library called. "Emma, my sister had problems with the same officers." Peter from school called too. "They hassled me when I parked outside my own house." Emma's legal training kicked in. She created a spreadsheet listing every complaint. Names, dates, times, witnesses. The pattern became clear. Thompson and Wilson targeted specific people, especially those they thought couldn't fight back. At work, the next day, Emma approached her senior partner, James Clark. His office overlooked the Thames, but Emma focused on his kind eyes behind reading glasses. "James, I need to discuss something personal that might affect the firm." After hearing her story, James leaned back in his chair. "Emma, you're one of our best barristers. If these officers are abusing their power, we should help. The firm would support this, not just support, we'll represent you pro bono. This is exactly why we fight for justice." That evening, Emma sat with her children at dinner. Michael, her 10-year-old son, had been quiet all day. Sophie, her 8-year-old daughter, picked at her food. "Mummy," Michael finally asked, "why are those policemen so mean?" Emma put down her fork. How could she explain this? Sometimes people use their power in wrong ways. They think they can be mean to others without consequences. "Is that why you're collecting all those papers?" Sophie asked. "Yes, sweetheart. When people do wrong things, we need to show proof. That's how we make things better. Like in my reading book, the little mouse proved the big cat was lying." Emma smiled, surprised at her daughter's insight. "Exactly like that. Will the mean policemen get in trouble?" "I hope so. But even if they don't, something important will happen." "What?" both children asked together. "Other people who are scared will see that speaking up matters. They'll find courage to tell their stories too. That's how change happens." Michael nodded solemnly. "We can help. We can tell our friends' parents that you're fighting the mean policeman." That night, After the children slept, Emma reviewed her growing file: phone numbers, emails, security, camera timestamps, witness statements. Tom Harris had circulated a petition. Grace Williams organized a community meeting. Even strangers offered support. Emma felt something powerful building. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone who had been unfairly treated. About making sure Thompson and Wilson couldn't hurt anyone else. The end. 2 weeks after filing her complaint, Emma received a phone call from the police department's internal investigations unit. She sat at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had gone cold. "Ms. Mitchell, this is Detective Robert Johnson. I'm handling your complaint about Officers Thompson and Wilson. Thank you for calling. Have you reviewed the body camera footage?" Silence stretched across the phone line. "Unfortunately, there's been an issue with the files. The digital storage system corrupted that night's recordings. We don't have the footage." Emma's heart sank. "But I have security camera footage from the petrol station." "I see. Well, we'll need to review that. But I should mention several officers have already given statements supporting Thompson and Wilson. They say the stop was routine and professional." "Professional? They insulted me, searched my car without reason, and gave me false tickets." "That's your perspective, Ms. Mitchell. The officers' statements tell a different story." After the call ended, Emma stared at the phone. How convenient that the police footage disappeared. She knew this was one of their tactics, but experiencing it felt different. The next morning, she found an envelope in her mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a handwritten note. "Mind your own business, lawyer lady. Some battles aren't worth fighting." Her hands shook as she read it. Someone was watching her house. Someone wanted to scare her. At work, Emma noticed whispers stopping when she entered the break room. Finally, her colleague Sarah approached her desk. "Emma, I wanted to give you a heads up. The Henderson account might be moving firms." "What? Why?" "They're concerned about publicity. They think taking on the police might create negative press for the firm." Emma felt sick. The Henderson account was worth 6 figures annually. "This isn't just my fight anymore." That afternoon, her mobile rang during a meeting. The caller ID showed Michael's school. She stepped into the hallway. "Ms. Mitchell, this is Ms. Patricia Johnson, the principal. Could you come in tomorrow? We need to discuss some concerns about Michael." "Is he misbehaving?" No, it's just, we've heard some rumors about your family's situation. We want to ensure everything is stable at home." Emma understood immediately. Someone had been talking. Someone wanted to suggest she was an unfit mother, too distracted by her legal battle to care for her children. The next day, she sat across from Ms. Johnson in the principal's office. Michael's teacher, Mrs. Roberts, joined them. "We just want to know if support is needed," Ms. Johnson said carefully. Michael mentioned something about policemen and court cases. Mrs. Roberts added, "He's been telling other children that his mummy is fighting bad policemen. We're concerned about what he's experiencing at home." Emma took a deep breath. "My family is fine. I'm teaching my children to stand up for what's right. Is that a problem?" "Of course not. But what? Is someone suggesting I'm a bad mother? Because I'm challenging police misconduct?" Both women shifted uncomfortably. Back at work, her senior partner James called her into his office. He closed the door and drew the blinds. "Emma, we need to talk about this case. Don't tell me you want me to drop it too." "The partnership met yesterday. Some members are worried about the firm's reputation. And you?" "I believe in justice. But I also have responsibilities to our other clients and staff." He paused. "Maybe we could settle. Get an apology, maybe some policy changes, without going to court. A quiet settlement, so the officers face no real consequences. Think about your children, Emma. This is getting messy." That evening, Emma sat on her grandmother's old rocking chair. She remembered visiting her grandmother every Sunday as a child. Grandmother Rosa had been a seamstress who stood up to unfair factory owners in the 1970s. She had won better working conditions for women. "Standing up for truth always matters," Grandmother Rosa used to say. "Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Emma pulled out her phone and scrolled through her messages. Dozens of people had reached out with similar stories. A young teacher who was stopped near her school, a businessman who was searched in front of his clients, a teenager who was humiliated in front of his friends. She thought about the note in her mailbox. About Michael telling his friends that his mummy was fighting bad policemen. About Sophie drawing pictures of police cars with sad faces. Her children were watching, learning. If she stopped now, what lesson would they learn? That bullies win? That power always trumps truth? Emma stood up and walked to the living room where Michael and Sophie were doing homework. "Mummy," Sophie looked up. "Are you still fighting the mean policeman?" "Yes, I am." "Good," Michael said firmly. "Someone has to." Emma smiled. Her children understood better than the adults trying to convince her to quit. She returned to her study and opened her case files. Tomorrow she would ask Dave for backup copies of the security footage. She would reach out to more witnesses. She would find a way to prove what happened. The note writer was wrong. This battle was worth fighting, not just for herself, but for everyone who had been voiceless for too long. The end on Tuesday morning, Emma's phone rang. An unknown number. "Ms. Mitchell, this is Officer Sarah Bennett. I need to speak with you privately." Emma hesitated. "Another officer. I was on duty that night," Bennett continued quickly. "I saw what happened. I have proof." They met at a quiet cafe. Bennett was young, maybe 30, with worried eyes. She kept glancing around as she spoke. "Thompson and Wilson are my senior officers. They told everyone there was technical trouble with the body cameras." She pulled out a USB drive. "But I kept my personal backup. All their cameras were working fine." Emma stared at the tiny device. "You could lose your job." "I became an officer to help people, not bully them. What they did was wrong." The footage was clear. Thompson mocking Emma's education. Wilson searching. Her car without cause. Every hurtful word captured. "There's more," Bennett said. "They often do this to people they think won't fight back. I've been documenting it secretly." 3 days later, Emma visited the cafe near the petrol station. The owner, Maria Lopez, greeted her warmly. "I heard you're fighting those officers." "Good. They park outside my cafe every morning. I see everything." "Do you have cameras?" "2 outside. One pointed at the street where they stopped you. I saved the footage the next day. Something felt wrong about how they treated you." Maria brought Emma her laptop. The footage showed Thompson and Wilson talking and laughing after giving Emma the tickets. They mocked her tears, celebrating their power. At Michael's school, his teacher noticed him discussing the case during lunch break. Instead of stopping him, she encouraged the conversation. Within days, the children started wearing blue ribbons, the color of justice, they decided. "Mummy," Sophie came home excited. One evening, "Our whole class made you cards." She emptied her backpack. 20 handmade cards with messages like, "You're brave, Mrs. Mitchell, and don't give up." Michael's friend James, whose father worked for the local newspaper, overheard the children talking. He mentioned Emma's story to his dad. The next morning, Emma's phone buzzed. The London Herald wanted an interview. Reporter Sarah Chen arrived at Emma's office. She was thorough, asking detailed questions and requesting to see the evidence. "Why haven't you told this story before?" Emma asked. "We tried. After other complaints," Sarah explained. "The police always denied everything. But this time you have real evidence. Multiple witness accounts, another officer speaking out. It's different." The article appeared that Sunday. Front page, "Barrister fights police misconduct. Evidence mounts against officers." The story laid out everything clearly, fairly, accurately. Emma's phone exploded with messages. Supportive emails poured into her work account. People shared stories of their own encounters with Thompson and Wilson. A week later, Emma received a package from the Royal Courts of Justice. Inside was a USB drive and a note. "Found this in the archives. Thought you should have it." The drive contained radio recordings from that rainy night. Thompson's voice clear as day. "Time to teach this fancy lawyer a lesson. Show her she's not special." Wilson responding, "Perfect target. Who's going to believe a complaint from her?" Emma's lawyer immediately filed these as evidence. The case strengthened. Daily. When the first court hearing arrived, Emma was astonished. The courtroom was packed. Grace Williams sat in the front row, nodding encouragingly. Tom Harris had closed his shop to attend. Maria Lopez waved from the back. The children from free. Michael's school held signs outside, "Justice for Mrs. Mitchell and Kids Support Truth." Young university students formed a group called Citizens for Police Accountability. They organized protests that remained peaceful but powerful. They researched similar cases across London, building a larger picture of misconduct. During the hearing, Officer Bennett testified. Her hands shook, but her voice stayed steady. I watched them target Ms. Mitchell. I heard them laughing afterwards. This isn't about one bad night. It's about a pattern of abuse that many officers choose to ignore. The defense lawyer tried to discredit Bennett's testimony, suggesting she was jealous of her senior colleagues. But the evidence spoke loudly. Clear video, audio recordings, consistent witness statements. Outside court during lunch break, a group of teenagers approached Emma. Ms. Mitchell, we're from South London Youth Council. We're starting a campaign to get body cameras checking properly. You showed us that speaking up works. Emma felt tears forming, but not from sadness this time. She saw how her private battle had grown into something larger. Her children watched from the courtroom steps where Grace Williams kept them entertained. Michael gave her a thumbs up. Sophie blew kisses. That evening, local news covered the story. Emma watched herself on television, surrounded by supporters. The presenter called it a pivotal moment in police accountability. Her senior partner, James, called, "The Henderson account is back, and 2 other firms want to transfer their business to us. They trust us now more than ever." Because of the publicity? Because we stood for something important. Emma looked at the growing pile of evidence on her study desk. The USB drives, printouts, witness statements, each piece telling part of a bigger truth. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for change, and for the first time since that rainy night, Emma felt hope could win. The end. The courtroom buzzed with hushed conversations. Emma sat straight in her chair, her children's handmade cards tucked in her briefcase. Judge Margaret Howard, known for her fairness, reviewed the evidence one final time. Thompson and Wilson stood in the witness box. Their confident smirks had vanished. They had heard the audio recordings, watched their own behavior on camera, read witness statements from people they never expected would speak. The evidence is overwhelming, Judge Howard stated. The videos clearly show unprofessional conduct. The audio recordings confirm discriminatory intent. Multiple witness accounts demonstrate a pattern of misconduct. Thompson shifted nervously. Wilson stared at the floor. "Do you admit to these actions, Officer Thompson?" "Yes, Your Honor," he mumbled. "Officer Wilson?" "Yes, we were wrong." The courtroom remained silent. Emma felt Grace's hand squeeze her shoulder. In the back row, Officer Bennett wiped away tears. "Judge." Howard removed her glasses. "This court finds Officers Thompson and Wilson guilty of misconduct, abuse of power, and racial discrimination. They will face suspension without pay and mandatory retraining. Ms. Mitchell, this court rules entirely in your favor." The judge continued, addressing the police department representative. "This court orders immediate implementation of new protocols. All officers must wear functioning body cameras. Annual bias training becomes mandatory. A civilian review board will monitor complaints. These changes are not optional. They are required." Emma felt warmth spreading through her chest. Not victory alone, but relief. Change was happening. Outside the courtroom, the street filled with supporters. Teenagers chanted, "Justice delivered." Maria Lopez offered free coffee to everyone. Children from Michael's school waved their ribbon flags. At her law firm that afternoon, James called a meeting. "We're creating a new department, Civil Rights Defense. We'll take police misconduct cases pro bono. Emma will lead it." The office erupted in applause. 3 weeks later, Emma stood at the community center podium. The same room where she taught English classes was packed. People crowded against walls. Children sat cross-legged on the floor. "I want to thank everyone," Emma began. "Your courage made this possible." She spotted familiar faces. Tom Harris, Dave from the petrol station, Mrs. Lopez, Officer Bennett, now promoted after her honest testimony, and dozens of others who had shared their stories. "When those officers stopped me," Emma continued, "they thought I was alone. They were wrong. They thought my voice wouldn't matter. They were wrong. They thought no one would believe me. They were wrong about everything." Soft laughter rippled through the crowd. One person speaking truth can seem small, but truth grows stronger when others join. First one voice, then two, then 10, then 100. She looked at Michael and Sophie in the front row, sitting with Grace. Their faces glowed with pride. Children asked if the mean policeman would get in trouble. Yes, they did. But something better happened too. We created change that will help everyone. The room erupted in applause. People stood, hugged, some crying happy tears. After her speech, teenagers surrounded Emma. We're starting a youth police monitoring group, one explained, to make sure the new cameras work properly. I'm teaching a journalism class about documenting injustice, another added. Emma smiled, realizing her case had planted seeds everywhere. Later, at home, she reviewed messages from across London, teachers incorporating her story into civics lessons, church groups discussing how to support each other during challenges, young activists inspired to address other injustices. "Mummy," Sophie called from the garden. Emma looked up. Her children played with neighbors' kids, acting out a pretend courtroom. Michael played the judge, saying, "The truth always wins." Emma thought of her grandmother's words echoing through generations. Standing up for truth always matters. She had lost count of the thank you cards arriving daily. People sharing how her courage inspired their own battles against workplace discrimination, unfair school policies, housing injustice. 6 months later, Emma received a letter from the Home Office. Police departments nationwide were adopting similar reforms. Other officers had come forward about misconduct in different districts. The ripple effect continued growing. At the next community center gathering, Emma shared her favorite quote. "Sometimes the hardest battles bring the most beautiful victories. When we stand for what's right with courage and community support, we can create lasting change." Grace Williams raised her teacup. To Emma, who showed us all what's possible. Everyone raised their cups, glasses, and coffee mugs. Children held up juice boxes. The room filled with warmth, hope, and celebration. Emma looked around at faces that had once been strangers, now united by a shared fight for justice. Her battle had ended, but the community remained stronger than ever. Outside, the London sunset painted the sky orange and pink. Children's laughter echoed from the playground. People walked past freely, safely, knowing they had voices that mattered. Emma had won more than a court case. She had helped write a new chapter for her community, one where truth spoke loudest, where courage grew contagious, where every person's dignity was protected, and somewhere, police officers wearing properly functioning body cameras were learning to treat all citizens with respect, not because they felt generous, but because they knew people were watching. People were documenting. People would speak up. The hardest battle had indeed brought the most beautiful victory. The end.